I am a detransitioner.
I am an 18-year-old detransitioner.
I originally came out publicly with my story in January 2020 while I was still transitioning.
I've seen firsthand the horrors that transitioning so young can bring.
I came out here to share my experience as somebody who I felt could have avoided this.
Our goal overall is to bring awareness to detransitioners. We've gone through it, we've escaped out of it, and we're exposing the truth of their life.
At 15, I underwent a double mastectomy and my breasts were permanently removed. I wanted to be a mother one day, and if I were to continue down the path of being a faux male, I never would be able to do that. I stopped transitioning.
I started socially transitioning at the age of 15. Medicalization began at 17 with a very high dose of testosterone.
When I turned 18, my birthday present to myself was cutting off my boobs.
I went on testosterone and estrogen blockers at age 17, and then age 19 I had a double mastectomy, but that mastectomy went very wrong. I ended up having massive bilateral hematoma, which is like pooling of blood underneath the skin, and my surgeon, he was nowhere to be seen. It was just, let me take your money, let me use a scalpel on you, and then
I knew in the beginning there wasn't going to be any support. They claim to be the good guys, but the good guy does not yell at people, silence them, give them credible death threats.
Unbeknownst to me, my daughter was being socially transitioned into believing that she was a boy.
My daughter's school was socially transitioning her behind my back. And she had a teacher who was using male pronouns and a new made-up name for her. This was when she was 11 years old.
My daughter decided that she was a boy at the age of 13. And I watched my daughter mental health decline significantly when she took on a trans identity.
We had a parent that came to us, and we had teachers that came to us that they were being told by the administration that Title IX includes confidentiality to lie to parents. Telling these children that they can't trust their parents with this critical issue that they're dealing with in their life. You're undermining the very foundational element of that which nurtures a child.
That moment we say we might be trans, we are automatically affirmed and given a pathway to medicalization and surgeries.
Even adult patients who I've talked to, they feel like they were duped into something, that they were lied to by the doctors, that they weren't really given the full picture of how transitioning would affect them.
Parents are being lied to who are vulnerable with suicidal children and being told that if they don't affirm, medicalize, mutilate, and sterilize their child, that child will kill themselves, and it's just not true.
We're in a society where there's a quick fix for everything. They want to give you a pill for everything. They want to give you a procedure for everything.
Most of the kids are on some sort of medications all the times. My daughter friends group, they're all like popping pills at an insane pace.
The adults in the community were telling them it could be helpful for them to take drugs that could ruin their endocrine system and get surgeries that could leave them, with pain for life and incontinence and risk of sepsis.
There's no one on the medical side who can help them detransition because this is all an experiment. They don't understand why the detransitioners have pain. They don't understand why things ache. They don't understand why they have incontinence. They don't know.
There's also, I think, a huge profit incentive to this, and my doctors, none of them really followed up with me after I stopped transitioning.
Gender industry is a $1.2 billion industry. If you have a so-called sex change and you have, for example, a double mastectomy and a phalloplasty and then another phalloplasty and then a corrective phalloplasty and then maybe you get a little bit of a metoidioplasty, you're talking $250,000 over the course of 15 years. So we'd love to have a transgender patient, right? This money right in your pocket.
I want to stop the practice of medically transitioning and harboring these children.
We have to get this away from children because children are very impressionable young minds. We need actual safeguards.
This is a gender war. It's a cult, and children and mentally ill people are on the front lines, going straight down the conveyor belt to the altar to cut off body parts.
This is mutilating otherwise beautiful, perfect young children. We need to stop these procedures for everybody under the age of 18. We have to finally legislatively ban this practice.
I do know people who, very well at least believed that they were going to end their life. They didn't get transitional medicine. I do feel like if we gave people psychological interventions, that maybe we wouldn't be seeing the necessity for the medical interventions whatsoever.
They say a woman is a Barbie, and what they say a man is G.I. Joe, and nobody's either of those. We're all in the middle, and we should celebrate our differences and never tell a child that everything is wrong with their body.
You don't cut off body parts of children when they don't fit right. You teach them how to live into themselves.
We're perverting people's completely normal feelings and their struggles, that their bodies are wrong, and that they should change them, and that's not right.
We should be teaching people from the get-go is that you are whole. Nothing will make you whole. You have to find that within yourself.
As I watched that video, some of these, people that have gone through this, gender transition, the parents talking about the health implications no one's talking about, aching joints and fatigue and fevers and incontinence and all of these things. And I just think, how little is known about this. And as I was working on this, one of my, favorite doctors out there came to mind, Dr. Patrick Flynn. They call him the hormone whisperer. He is the author of I Disagree, and I wanted to ask him some questions, so I'm really psyched to be joined by Dr. Patrick Flynn right now. Dr. Flynn, it's great to see you.
Dell, great to see you as always.
Now, I know you've been watching Luca's story and this discussion, and what I find shocking is really, as from Luca's perspective, how little is known. And one of the things, you and I have been on stages speaking, all over the country. You've been all over the world. You're very focused on how even more important than vitamins is, hormones and our balance. And so I really wanted to ask you, what happens to a body when we just inject, a woman with, or a girl with testosterone, a child, or we, take a boy and inject them with estrogen? Is it just that simple, easy peasy, and now we're just, turned into a different gender? I have to imagine, since you are so, specific about every little nuance of your hormones affecting your future, what are your thoughts on this issue?
Well, to me, it's very scary. For the things that, because there's a big difference between men and women when it comes to their hormones. For example, if you just even take a look at the basic science of how hormones are produced and converted, you understand that the females will have different enzymes and higher level enzymes to help convert their hormones to other forms. Males have this a little differently, but so they're not at the same level. And to give you an example, if you look at just testosterone itself, guys can actually handle a certain level of testosterone because what it does is actually produced and then converted to other forms. So their body's biologically meant to take it. And therefore, if it gets too high or too low, there's physical and there's mental things that happen to even if boys or men get too high or too low testosterone. It gets even a little bit more devastating when also it comes to women because they have so many more conditions that can happen if they end up with like estrogen dominance or even low progesterone. But the thing is this, they each have different factors that cause them to convert to different forms. And I can give you an example. If you look at the normal ranges of just even like, let's say, estrogen for males, if you look at the dramatic increase for women is about 4 or 5 times more than a male. A male has a roughly range about 0 to 40. And if you look at it this way, and take a look at this, it's just a simple research there. Sex is a major determinant, once again, of some of the enzymes that we do have. There's great research out there, you can pull up from PubMed, and to show that they have much more capability of converting that. Now, if they automatically stick that level of estrogens into a male, their body is not meant to handle it. It can't. It doesn't even have the specific load. I can show you some research. I just saw what happened to Kelly Klein there, where she was in New Zealand. New Zealand actually on their medical, one of their medical websites, they even talk about how these certain enzymes right there, the drug metabolism. If you look, there's certain enzymes we have, and you can see they're called P450, or 4. It's part of your liver, part of your small intestine. But look at 6 down. Look right down. Women have higher levels, more activity than men. And what that shows is this. Their ability to convert hormones, their ability to convert estrogens is predominantly much higher with them. So I actually had something that I can sit right here in my labs right here, and this drove me absolutely crazy. So I have this hospital, this person had labs sent to me. They have female adult ranges, they have male adult ranges, and then they have transgender ranges. And this was a male for their estradiol, their estrogen levels. And all of a sudden, I had to call the hospital because I said, listen, I had labs sent down to me by a patient, and all of a sudden I look and you go, hey, listen, the male estradiol ranges go from roughly 20 to 60. The females obviously go from 70 to 200. Okay, but the transgender for males converting to a female is 100 to 200. How do you determine where you're going to put that value in there? And they had no other reason. They said this: what they put down on their form when they put male or female, that's where we put their ranges in. And it was interesting. So even though
the
this
patient's
was
deciding, not doctors, not medicine, not science. It's just whatever the patient's doing and whatever their psychologist has decided to roll with. There you have it. What are the the health implications of a woman, let's say, having too much testosterone in their body if that happened naturally, which is something you would deal with? What are the health implications of that for a woman?
Well, two things. Take a look at Luca when she was transitioning before. Look at her skin. Did you see the acne? Did you see the changes in her facial structure? But also, here's what happens. You have an increased testosterone like that, you're going to end up with major conditions. You're going to end up with PCOS. On top of it, if you kind of look, if those levels get even higher, they can end up with forms of cancer. The sad part of that is this, is they're not meant to handle that levels of testosterone, so therefore they end up with major conditions. But here's the one thing, I'm going to give you an example of this is about 2008. Don't quote me exactly, but it was in 2008. I had a young girl that came in. She came with her mother, and she ended up having cystic acne, and she had some excessive facial hair growth. She had some really strong periods. So what happens, I said, listen, let's get your hormones measured. And at this time, I asked her for her past doctor's labs. And of course, we can get into it. They have a very incomplete how to look at both female and male hormones. So we properly tested her. We did a whole array of tests that way. I got them back and her testosterone levels were really high. Well, what happens is this. We so focus on the physical things that happen. We could see it. And I saw her testosterone levels were probably about 84, if I remember, which is almost double the range. And I looked at her and I said, listen, there's physical manifestations that happen with hormones, but there's also psychological ones that happen. And she goes, can you explain? I said, well, listen, testosterone is a very aggressive, dominant. It actually gives even a male sex drive into that. Her mom stopped me and said, can we talk about something? And the daughter's right there. She's about 19 years old. She looks and says, hey, listen. She goes, we're here because my daughter also thinks she's a boy. And I looked at her and I saw the shame come over this young lady. And I looked at her. I looked her right in the eyes. I said, I got a question for you. Do you understand that what if I told you that you couldn't control it? And she perked up a little bit. I said, do you understand? Hormones by nature are called messengers. Therefore, if you have these elevated messages going in your body, it's going to affect you both physically and psychologically, and it can change how you view the world. It can change how you see yourself. It can change how you see the other sex. It can change how you see everything. And actually she started to cry because she realized that she didn't have control over something that was going abnormal in her body. And within 3 months of getting her hormones back to normal, all of a sudden she came in for a consult. And I wasn't going to retest her hormones for about 6 months. And she came in about 3 months or so, and her mom and I came just giddy as can be. And my job was not to worry the manifestations happens to get those hormones back to normal, because when you get those hormones back to normal, those skin changes, those period changes, those hair changes, by nature, you're genetically programmed to go back to normal. And if there's wrong messages, guess what? If the messages start to go right, all of a sudden they're so happy. They sit down and say, doc, guess what? And she goes, I now feel like a young woman now. So I ran her labs right away. Testosterone dropped right back down to normal. And no joke, still to this day, she's doing fantastic. She's married, has kids now and everything. But and that's where, when I see these people that actually, are going through this, I have a lot of empathy for them, because you know why? Ladies, you know this. Let's say that you just have period cramps, or you have some other psychological thing that happens, depression, anxiety, because your hormones are too low or too high. It's out of your control. It really is. We think that we can control this, and then we look at them and go, you're just making a choice. What if I told you that there could be hormonal issues that could lead to these psychiatric issues that could really change how you even view the world and view yourself?
It's been fun, when you speak, there's a lot of fun to your talks because you just talk about how, we're judging each other a lot and maybe we just need to adjust and take a look at our hormones. And in this case, you have children that are, you have doctors that don't know what they're talking, like forcing a total shift on the body. Just sort of wrap this up because I want solutions. I hate doing stories, Luca is out there really trying to warn children, warn parents, making really important statements about the internet and watching how our children are being trained in this. But can I ask you this, when you watch the story of Luca, there's obviously this growing body of people now as you watch these rallies that are going on that are trying to detransition out of this. Is there a space? I mean, they seem to be up against doctors that are saying we don't know what to do here. Though the story you just told us about a natural girl, who's naturally out of balance, is there a possibility of fixing someone that is so totally radically hit their body with an unnatural charge of either estrogen in a boy or testosterone inside of a young girl?
Well, of course, because here's what happens. When you put that level of testosterone into the body, remember, it has to metabolize, it has to convert to other forms, and their organ systems are not meant to deal with that. So they don't have the support or the enzymes to do it that way. So that can be supported, and you can see that transition. I would love to have the opportunity to not only work with Luca, get her tested properly, because that's the biggest thing. The one thing I can tell you in all of hormonal health, the sad part is this: doctors do not do the right things to actually even test them. So what they're doing is they're trying to make decisions on them that's incomplete. I can honestly tell you, I have a mother in our studio right now, that dealt with the same thing with their daughter. And what happens is they wanted to give her testosterone to transition her. The sad part is this: I'm like, did they ever test your hormones? And the answer overwhelmingly is no. Well, she already had abnormal hormones. So you're going to now give her synthetic other hormones to make them more abnormal? And It's really sad. There's so much help for individuals like Luca, and I would love to have the opportunity just to have a conversation with her. And then guess what? Show her what can be done, because here's what happens. Even her body, even though they've manipulated it chemically and they've altered it, guys, there's so much hope and there's so much things that can be done because your body wants to be normal. It's been altered chemically, but what if we could support its regeneration? What if we could support its growth? What if we could normalize those hormones back to level, and we can see those things transition truly back to that female state that she belongs in?
Awesome. I'm definitely going to connect to you after the show with Luca, and let you sort of take that conversation from there. For people that are interested, whether it's just in their own hormones out of balance, or perhaps they're watching the show right now, or they've been handed this show by a friend saying, "I know your child is going through this," what's a great way that they could reach out to you and make contact and perhaps get some proper testing done to see if they can get their lives and their hormones back into balance?
Yeah, we have clinics all over the U.S. Just go to thewellnessway.com. Find a clinic up there. We have clinics all over. Also, if you ever want to follow my stuff that way, I have a huge Instagram page. It's just Dr. Patrick Flynn. I share information that, and you can see the people debate on it all the time as they do here. And I've been kicked off many of the platforms before, but they always seem to let me back on and share more information. So that'd be a great way to actually for people to follow.
All right, Dr. Flynn, thank you for taking the time. Very enlightening, and I love that you're out there, helping people through all sorts of issues around their hormones. So take care. Hormone Whisperer, I'll see you out there in the talking circuit soon, I'm sure. So take care. Thanks for joining us.
You betcha. Thanks, Dal.